Hi there, welcome to the Dylan Rounds case. Today I want to clear some things up from the past, but I also want to add on with some key predictions which are long overdue. Welcome to those that are currently here in the live premiere. Feel free to share your thoughts and opinions in the live chat box right hand side of the screen, and in general, if anyone wants to leave comments, questions, elaborate on topics, discussions, ideas, list them down below under this video. You'll also find a pinned comment by me. If you wish to check that out, there's some additional links there. And if you want to catch up on my recent videos, top right corner of the screen where the eye symbol is, you'll be able to find the last video that I did. Feel free to check it all out when you do have time. But right now, we just need to get into the current discussions. And I think what we'll start off with first of all, just so you know the order of today's video, I'm going to give you my predictions. And I'm also going to reflect back on the Dylan Rounds community, the case, okay? Because we need to have a reality check. I know most individuals here and who regularly watch are and do have common sense, which is very good to see. You might get a few odd lurkers in the background, but there's some exceptions, right? You know, we've seen it in recent time with some dodgy people showing up, but it does depend whether they're real or not, because there are always those fake accounts, just understand that, okay? But I just want to do a bit of a reality check to highlight what would have happened or what likely would have happened if certain people didn't exist at the start, okay? So I'll highlight that. Predictions for onwards, because I said I was going to do it, but I kept forgetting, so I thought I'll do it at the start of this video because then I won't forget. But then also we can check the comments out of the last video that I did, just see people's reactions and thoughts to do with my video explaining the reason why someone like James Brenner would take Dylan Rounds out. See if people agree or not, if there's any alternative points of views, etc. I'll get to that, I'll read those comments out, acknowledge them. But first of all, let's just do the predictions. Let's do the reality check with the Dylan Rounds case community. Just want to highlight that the Dylan Rounds case, because there hasn't been true justice yet, that's still kind of ongoing, right? But moving in a positive direction. But it's not case closed literally. Some people could say it is, but it's not officially. It's still open. Would there be twists and turns? Maybe not as much now to some people, but there's always that slight chance. But are there still people that are hanging on to the case in the background who didn't get what they want, but they still want to claim this and that? Yes, absolutely. But that's to be expected, okay? So with the talk about Don Hatley, it's not been debunked, has it? His name hasn't been truly cleared, or his name's not come up since. Not been any public post defending him. I mean, you look at Chase Venstra in the early days and up to a certain point, Candice Cooley. I don't know if Justin Rounds did it himself, but I know Candice Cooley did in interviews, basically, just in those interviews on YouTube talking about his innocence and not being involved, right? And maybe some people didn't like that and thought, no, not good enough, we don't trust it. Well, look where we are now. I wonder what those idiots think. Exactly. But, you know, there was attempts made to defend Chase Venstra by the family, in a way. But there's not been any attempts to defend Don Hatley's name. Not then, not now. So it still remains a bit open-ended and a bit of a mystery. If the case is case closed, complete, Brenner's been sent down, justice has finally been received in the name of Dylan Rounds, and then that's it, then maybe you can say, well, that truly is it. Maybe Don played no role at all, and that's it, right? If you don't agree, let me know your thoughts down below. But I just wanted to highlight that and the reason behind these videos, right? Because it's not a closed case just yet, so these videos aren't closed either. Got to tie that in line. It's got to run in parallel with both, okay? Case community. And with the community, okay, I'm going to put across a realistic point, okay? So make sure to listen in, whoever's watching, and those in the background, welcome. I would say if Jim Terry was never assigned to the Dylan Rounds case, was never involved to begin with, then basically all the other people and characters along the way probably wouldn't exist either, okay? because of Jim Terry's presence, his audience at the time, or the people that gathered towards him, and those that may have previously knew him long term, all gathering together, and then others coming along, and then some from other communities, and then all things bubbled and changed and turned, right? If you take away the original person, the private investigator from the Dylan Browns case, you wouldn't have all these other people. You wouldn't have as much mess, drama, conflict, BS, and misinformation. Simple as, right? And you might wonder, who am I exactly referring to by the other characters? Probably 70 to 80% of people, right? Both creators and audience members. I'm just being realistic, okay? You know, you think of, and I've highlighted it already, okay? Just to put things into perspective, you take away the private investigator, you take away the audience of that private investigator, you take away the acquaintances and those that have known the PI beforehand long-term on YouTube or elsewhere, and then you take away all the other resistance and different characters, subgroups, subcell division groups, take it all away, all these people, locals and those further afar, and who would be present then? Wouldn't the Dylan Browns case be very silent? Well, to put it in perspective, you take all these people away, all the troublesome, the misfits, the dysfunctional humans, take them all out of the mix, and what you have is a typical everyday true crime missing person mystery case like any other one out there, in which you still would have the likes of a Tyler Feller, or a Mob Crew Chris, or a Zav Girl, or 10 to the power, or 10 to the dozen, however you say the person's name, and then other YouTubers. More bigger established channels that will put some time into covering the case for ever how long, and then move on to something else, like how most people do with true crime and missing people cases, right? Then I would come along, as I did, and then basically be the only one stuck around covering the case. That's it. I mean, I've already done that, right? But if all the other people didn't exist, you see the chain effect of what wouldn't have happened. But I still would have arrived regardless, and I would have still remained regardless covering it. The positives behind if that did happen, okay, to be fair, as long as you had Mob Crew Chris still covering the Dylan Browns case individually, Glorindellum, even Zavgirl to an extent, and a few others, those channels and those platforms that provided Candice Cooley a voice and also provided us knowledge on the case in learning about the updates as we went along. Even Doug, no thanks. As much as people may hate him, he did provide a platform for Candice Cooley to speak, in which we heard updates from her directly. So it was something, at least. There was a positive within it, to an extent. Right? As long as those things did happen, even when you had all the other dysfunctional humans out of the mix, it would have been okay, right? Still would have learned, still would have gone along with the updates. But you know what you would have had? A bit more clarity and a bit more peace and quiet, less disruption, less chaos, less confusion, less people talking over one another, less people's names being, dragged through the mud, etc. Right? Because what we see nowadays, such as with me covering the Dylan Browns case, whether people have lost stamina with time and moved on, as we've evidently seen many months ago, and in recent time, because people have just assumed that the case is done, one and done, that's it, we move on, right? What you have now is kind of a small-scale microcosm of what could have happened way back at the start of the Dylan Browns case if the PI, if the audience members, if the nuts, the ferals, the animals, the towers, twin towers, no, not that, but, well, you could say twin towers, but not in that sense. The symbolism of you've got these pillars within the community, whether they're upstanding or not, right? You had areas and environments which supposedly upheld the Dylan Browns community and provided information and some kind of awareness, but as we saw, nothing short but a disaster, confusion, misinformation, dipsy-daisy individuals, lackadaisical individuals, bubbles around the head, bubbles inside the brain, not quite there with it, the lights are on but no one's at home. People constantly stuck in a cycle, going round and round in circles, the tornado effect, the Noah's Ark effect, all the drama. Not because of the Dylan Rounds case exactly, but because between these different humans who just happened to congregate within a case. And as we've seen with time, as they moved away from the case. The drama continued, but at least it was away from the case. So it was never really about Dylan Rounds to begin with, just like maybe the level of care. A lot of people may claim to care about the Dylan Rounds case, but are they there constantly covering it? No. But are they there constantly talking about mangoes, fruits, the male anatomy, talking about sizes and bits and bobs and low standards and random stuff in coffees and Starbucks, everything but the Dylan Rounds case, spending 3 to 4 hours talking about umming and ahhing, losing disconnection, poor mic quality, and then spending 30 minutes talking about the Dylan Rounds case and then going back to the same old cycle. Yeah, that seems like a lot of dedication, focus and care towards the case. Not. And then let's do our little 2 minutes of good action and behavior by going onto the Facebook page or a different page out there in the name of Dylan Rounds, sending prayers, wishes, all positive messages towards the parents, towards Candice Cooley, Justin Rounds, and then revert back to supporting channels or highlighting other channels out there, giving super chats, or just simply chatting, having all fun, smiling and joking, showing a two-faced personality, narcissistic persona, and then returning back to being nice again for a few minutes. Yeah, that's a total mess. I've just basically summarized over 2 years worth of human cancer and degenerative behavior within humans. As said, yes, 10 years I've analyzed humans, and now 0.5 seconds is all it takes so I get an idea of who humans are and what they're all about, okay? So, what I've just summarized there, take that all away, peel it all back, and then the only person that's left standing on a regular basis would be me. And with what we've seen within the last few months, it's been silent, it's been quiet, but people have been able to talk, chat, hang out, share one's thoughts with another individual, with little resistance and tension, disagreements on a formal basis, no harm done, making progress along the way, clearing stuff up and learning as we all go along, perfection. That, on a short scale basis, could have happened from the beginning if all these other characters never existed to begin with. Now, you can say, well, what about the locals, individuals that came on in and then recorded videos and uploaded it to YouTube? You got to understand these individual people may have played a role nevertheless and involved themselves in the case, but as how they publicize it or show it online, that may have not have happened. Because as said, it's a chain reaction. You take the originals, you take the cancer away, there's less influence. With less influence, there'll be less chances of people being influenced by it in which they make a decision, right? You take that away, less decisions, less action taken, different pathway, done. You know, you didn't have all the conflicts online. You didn't have all the hangouts and the communities online, and there was no encouragement of, yeah, you create a channel, we'll boost you up. Or, you know, you come over here, we'll spread your name in the community. You take all that away. You take all the way the influences, positive and negative, delusional, unrealistic, whatever. People could be out there searching on a regular basis, as like what we've seen. But how they publicize it online may have been smaller and not as long term, right? Because as we know, the reason why some things continued on for so long is because people were adding fuel to the fire so it burnt for longer. If you didn't set fire to it in the first place, it just wouldn't spread and it wouldn't last at all because it never started. And if it never started, it was dead from the get-go. Didn't exist. It did. We've seen what happened, but here we are now. I'm just being realistic. You take everything away, it would be a lot better. You'd still probably get the same outcome within the Dylan Rounds case. Because at the end of the day, being realistic, it seems like the weight rested on Brenner and when he was willing to open up the key to revealing the location of Dylan's body, right? So no matter what all the little rats and the wailing banshees and the other humans out there going on and on and on, whilst their actual motives or reasons behind it weren't so clear, at least for me, it was just to keep the case alive, to spread awareness. It might sound very simple and basic, but that's exactly what I said I was going to do, and that's exactly what I did, right? So it's all about under promising, over delivering, in a sense. But whilst, yeah, I may have kept the case alive and I tried spreading awareness, I probably did more than I expect, but I'm not going to explain how or why, because I wouldn't know exactly and it would be biased. But witnesses probably could add on from that if they wish to. But I think by now, you know, we've kind of gone over it. So shout out to all the people that do watch, and all the positive things people have said here. It's good of people to be that way. But yeah, I just wanted to put it into perspective because, you know, look at this. I have covered other cases on and off and so, and there's not been many people around, and it's been for the best, okay? Towards the start, midway through, I was told by a range of different people, just in general, that it's good that lots of people cover a case and we all come together. No. The best case scenario is if there's only 1 to 3 people, 1 to 4 people that cover a case, right? Depending the sizes of the communities and audiences, that's a big thing to take in consideration. Because if you scale it back to the Kenny Veach case, what I covered, okay, it was me, Jeff Clark, Atari, Sean Horlacher, up to a point. Yeah, Jay Chuck, Jay Silverheels, and in recent time, SB Vegas Adventures, about 7 people, and there could be a few others as well. But on a regular basis, how many were there for a certain period of time? Well, it was me, Sean Horlacher, Atari, about 3 people. Did each channel creator have a big audience? I think it was relative, and relative to the time spent on YouTube as a platform, and the consistency in how many videos came about on a regular basis. You know, I was probably the one making the most videos, so I, in a way, experienced maybe a bit more growth than others, but that's to be expected, right? Whereas someone who may upload a video once a month, well, there's not as much growth there, but each video, whether it was on a day-to-day basis or spread out, each one had its own impact and positive effect behind the case in some way or another, besides me, other creators. But not everyone else out there had a big audience or brought their audience towards the case. And that's not meant in a negative way, okay? So I'm saying there's exceptions where you could have more than 3 to 4 people on a case, but majority of those people don't really have an audience. They just all come together as creators. With the Dylan Rounds case, you had a range of different people, creators, or eventually becoming creators, or more so, we should call it wannabe YouTubers, all coming together, then disbanding, and then creating subcell divisions. But on top of all that happening, whilst all these creators may have come together, so did all the individual audiences come together. And when you got that underlying sub-factor and group, which is the audience, they don't quite gel well with others, communities out there. Whereas with the Kenny Veach case that I covered, it was basically creators coming together. And as for the audience, well, to be honest, the audience was just one big thing that branched from the beginning. The audience is down here, not in terms of a hierarchy, I'm just saying the audience was all in one big pool, and then I came about, and Jeff Clark before that, and Sean Horlacher. But on that catalytic moment, right, 2020 onwards, that's when everyone gathered, a mix of different people came to mine, went to Sean's, went to Atari's. It was like one big group, okay? Because there wasn't cell groups or individual audiences tied with different communities, there wasn't any division, right? You can still say there was disagreements and there was questionable humans, etc., but all came from the same place, the same community. With the Dylan Rounds case, it's different groups of people from different communities coming together as the creators come together, and that's when there can be a clash and a lot of noise goes on. That's the downfall to begin with. So remove all of that and you just have one channel, which gathers everyone together. That's for the better. The more people you have arrange who have some form of power or control, such as on YouTube, some can misuse it or use it against one another. It just diverts attention and time wastage in unnecessary situations rather than the case itself. And I think there was a lot of time wastage too. If a lot of people truly cared about the Dylan Rounds case, all those outsiders, then why did they keep going round and round in circles with certain conflict? And I say certain because at times some people didn't have a choice and it might have been a bit awkward. So there are always exceptions, but when you look at it holistically, better time could have been spent doing better things. But those humans did not do that. I did though, okay? But on top of being able to do that, I also did the other stuff. So basically, I did my coverage and I did their work for them too, which was making sense of everything. So basically, I was babysitting everyone indirectly, okay? Daddy Ref was doing it all. But as cringy as some of those words and titles were, I will highlight one thing from 2022 when covering this case. From 22 to 2023, I was a whore, okay? No question. I was a whore, okay? More of a whore than anyone else out there. How does that even make sense? It doesn't directly in a case, okay? Being appropriate there. But in terms of the side videos and transition onto other stuff, and you look back at the videos, you look back at some of the titles, what the hell's going on? It's just called going with the flow at the time, right? It was called doing some random or positive things when countering the negative dark forces and moments. That's what created a level of balance, okay? And certain dodgy behavior was needed to deter humans. The more dodgy you are, the more likely you are to deter bad people, okay? So there's different methods to it all, okay? But I think we got that out of the way. Now, let's just get on to the prediction part to do with what happens next or what has already happened onwards. Anyone that still latches on to the Dylan Rounds case in the background with alternative ideas and the BS stories, people who still hold on tight to that, as bad as it may seem, at least those people are consistent, delusional through and through. It's better to come across a delusional individual, such as in the Dylan Rounds case, with their own theories and ideas, spreading misinformation and trying to cause damage. As bad as it may seem, if they remain like that from start to finish, that's consistency. It's better than all the other two-faced individuals that went along with something, enabled something, pushed it, went along with it, got defensive when other people called it out, and then afterwards do a U-turn, change, and then say, we're all in this together. No, we're not, bitch. Step right back. Know your place. Shut your mouth. Now, there's probably a bit more of an influence from The Rock, some kind of promo from WWE, okay? Just wanted to highlight there for reference. But you just take a step back, right? Where we are now, good things have happened within the Dylan Rounds case, movement in the right direction, and that's what most people would want. There might be some in the background that don't want this type of movement forwards, but said more about them. Not that we'll see it publicly though, or see it after their reactions, because take in mind that all of the humans and the outsiders that were pushing certain points, like with the gun and the key fob, the gun and the key fob people, both creators and audience members, of course, and I know exactly every single audience member out there, outsider, who was responsible for pushing that. I'm very familiar with those humans, and I do see the odd human very infrequent on my channel too. See, I am an elephant. I can make a sound of an elephant, but I also do remember quite a bit, okay? So it's not just the gun and key fob, there's other stories as well. The Chase Venstra obsession, pushing that idea. Robert Avila's situation, pushing that idea. The horse box trailer, the kidnapping, the pushing of all that with no actual hard evidence, right? But it was enough to convince all these audience members out and about all over the place over there, right? And, you know, just as a very, very small example, nothing personal, just as an example, it's like when Fast Eddie came to my channel and, you know, didn't specifically answer my questions at times, was a little bit awkward and problematic when responding back to my points, quite firm with supposedly claiming common sense and the possibilities of an alternative story, like with the Gunn and Key fob, and then some other stories too. But a bit of a goldfish in, where we're at now, what's happened. People have gone very quiet, haven't they? Oh, goldfish, pretend like it never happened. Many other humans out there. This is what I mean. This is what I really mean, right? There's times and moments to highlight it, not then because too busy covering the case, but here and there when reflecting back, of course it can be covered. I know a lot of people out there, I know a lot of former people within the community that were pushing ideas or on a board of a bandwagon, dipsy individuals, easily convinced, right? Easily manipulated, but then going along with it afterwards, and then expecting to be welcomed here and there and changing and turning and seeing the light like nothing ever happened. And whilst people can change and people can move on and people can be vulnerable, etc., a lot of these humans do not acknowledge the past. They just want to move on. A range of different people that say that they weren't made because of Jim Terry, well, they did get a boost from Jim Terry when it came to channels being started up. How they've maintained their channels since, it's been by them themselves, their work, their hard effort, whatever you want to call it, right? If they've maintained their channels, that's on them. But where they started off, they were given a free handout, a free boost in views, subscribers, followers, Cash Me Outside, MooPal, PayPig, whatever you want to call it, right? People got a boost. So I said, you peel back the layers, you take away the catalyst, you take away the forces, the darkness, you wouldn't have the boost, you wouldn't have the free handouts, then you wouldn't have these people being encouraged in creating a channel, which then led to enabling more misinformation and confusion, Chinese whispers in the Dylan Brown's case. It all gets taken away. It was one big, massive chain effect. And whilst there was always people out there who would have covered the case nevertheless, maybe not as publicly online, right? And those doing searches and boots on ground footage, they wouldn't have felt like they've had to prove anyone online or feel that they have to compete with anyone online. They'll just get on with it and do what they need to do because that's what's more important. The ones that claim it's not for clicks or views, it's not for this or that, but you still upload videos online. Well, if it's not for clicks or views, then why do you care if anyone watches them? Why even upload videos in the first place, right? It's kind of like when people try and direct it at me, and I've come across some big prats and idiots in recent time, and I didn't mention it at the time because there was more things important going on, but like with the hobo shoestring case short term, and I was covering it, and I saw some resistance from people saying, you're just covering this case because of clicks and views and attention. Right, so with the attitude you have for saying that, I assume that you mention that to every other YouTuber out there that decides to cover a case, because if not, it's very selective and you're just taking it out on me and no one else. Yeah, there must be an agenda going on. But in general, right, if I clearly said beforehand, spread awareness, let people learn about a case, well, it basically means people need to watch it. And if you're about awareness, so more people learn about it, well, you would want as many people to see the video, to view it, to somehow watch it in some way or see it. Just like how people put posters out in public, flyers on doorways, businesses, lamp posts, in hopes of spreading awareness so the general public in the area walk past and see it, view it. It just so happens that on YouTube, though, statistically, it actually gives a counter of how many people have viewed a video. But people seem to think that is an evil thing, that if you upload videos, it's all for clicks and views and that's a bad thing. Yeah, it's perfectly okay plastering photos and missing people in public and expecting and hoping as many people to see that. That's okay in real life, but as for online, no, you can't do any awareness. Well, that's clearly one-sided, one-dimensional, and one of the most stupid things I have heard in a long time. And I've seen a range of people with that mentality, absolutely, truly pathetic, okay? Awareness in real life is good. Awareness online is superior. There are far more people you can reach out to online than in real life, right? Literally. It's pretty self-explanatory, okay? But these humans out there, they don't understand that. They jump to the negatives. And most of the people tend to be outsiders who don't know my channel and don't stick around long enough to know. So that's on them. They need to learn. They need to do better, right? But every now and then, given, there are some humans that have been around for some time on my channel, on and off, past viewers or randoms in between. They should know better, but mistakes can be made at times. It is what it is, okay? But I just want to highlight this as we all go along. And there's a lot of names and key names I could mention to you, but what's the point? I just like mentioning the odd name as an example to put things into perspective, okay? But if my predictions haven't been made quite clearly enough yet, I probably put them in motion a while back, but I'll reiterate them and for the future too, because the case is still ongoing within Dylan Rounds, technically speaking. What I would say, and it kind of reiterates from the past too, all of the humans and the vast proportion, audience members, creators out there, outsiders, when it comes to Dylan Rounds, as disruptive as they may have been, and as another portion of humans may have been very deceptive by stuff and manipulated, whatever, didn't learn the lessons with time, didn't acknowledge their past, they kind of forgotten it all, brushed it all off. My prediction is, and my prediction was, when things move forwards in the Dylan Rounds case and there are new developments and breaking news, as we've already seen, that people will all come together like nothing ever happened in the past, like everything can be forgiven, forgotten, and we move forwards hand in hand. What a load of bollocks. That violin playing in the background, played by a little mouse, take it away, replace it with cheese, okay? Because something needs to be shoved in people's mouths so we don't hear the whining and just the pure noise, right? See, I've already mentioned that when people forget the past and stuff, history repeats itself, of course, but in other areas, when looking at the community aspect and the goldfish mentality, right? You've heard me mention the goldfish mentality. I was the first one to create it and apply it, and it became a bit of a bandwagon within humans. As I've noticed subconsciously, I've seen it in the background, observational wise, covert or overt observations, non-participant. I've noticed that a lot of humans can be influenced by me, certain sayings, words, descriptions, costumes, the lot. Humans can be influenced from that, and because of that influence, it starts a chain reaction. So like with the chain reaction from the beginning of the case, take that chain reaction away, you wouldn't have that. You take the chain reaction from my creativity, then a lot of people would have less to do themselves and work with. So you see a level of desperation nowadays because the creativity from me isn't directly there or in that area, so then others don't have anything. So it's like starving humans of oxygen, right? You think of the life support machine, right? When you start pulling the life support machine away, they'll tug back because they need you, they want you. It works in their little routine, such as the routine of drama and conflict. It's like a full circle. It works for them, right? So prediction-wise, humans play it off like nothing ever happened, and all of those that engaged with the cancer, whilst being positive for the next 2 minutes elsewhere, sending the thoughts and prayers in the name of Dylan or the family, and then going back to the same creators or audience members that have been responsible for causing the family distress or just headaches and confusion, or even the genuine people trying to learn about the case, confusion, right? Play it off like nothing ever happened. It's no different than a rapist, okay? A lot of these humans or former humans in the Dylan Rounds community with their goldfish mentality is exactly the same as a rapist, okay? See, the thing is, I can go to the extreme with my examples, but I can put it into perspective so it makes sense, and that's exactly what I'm going to do now because I know most humans can't do it and fail. When it comes to a rapist, they can do what they do to someone. They can take something away from that person in different ways, that the power, the confidence from someone, inflict fear within the individual, and that person may hate themselves or feel disgusted in themselves, feel uncomfortable with themselves, feel dirty, and it lasts, right? A rapist can inflict psychological damage onto someone and physical too, and it can be long lasting. But when it comes to the questioning side, the interrogation part, at times, or to a fair degree, rapist can use the form of, you want to call it manipulation, or just simply playing it off like it never really happened, or it wasn't that big of a deal. Oh, they were up for it, they said yes, oh, it doesn't matter, they weren't that damaged, were there? Wasn't no physical harm done, it's okay, it is what it is, but it's, external manipulative minimalization. Okay, I've mentioned it, I first introduced it back in 2014. You've got self-manipulative minimalization, where a human will play down the achievements or the effect of something that they've done themselves to hype themselves up, so other humans hype them up, that's what they want. But external manipulative minimalization is when you play down the achievements, the impacts of somebody else to put them down, to normalize them. It's manipulative, you're trying to convince and persuade them that what they've done isn't great and it is basic. It's about manipulating the mind. Now, in a case like this, right, the person that has done wrong, done a bad action, they play it off, they almost like a form of self-manipulative minimalization on an external basis by playing down the effects, playing down the negativity, playing down the damage it has had on a human out there, okay? And I'll be honest with you, we can actually do a bit of an overlap right now because godlike mode activated. When it came externally to the Dylan Rounds case and when doing research there, when coming across the Wadsworths, okay? I think it was Troy Wadsworth. Correct me if I'm wrong, okay? Troy Wadsworth with long hair in the past, inappropriate behaviour towards a 15-year-old, if I'm correct, in the past. Was it 2003? Can't quite remember, but in the early 2000s. As he got in trouble. But his response, or at a time, I think it was in court, his attitude was, not much damage done, okay? So it was inappropriate towards a person of a younger age, right? As you might use your imagination as to what happened. We did look at an article which went into it a bit more extensively. I think it talked about oral activity, right? So it's not good. But in terms of that, as inappropriate as it was, obviously it would have caused some form of psychological damage towards that younger individual. But how that individual responded later, either there was a delay or they didn't reply or report it immediately. So in defense, well, not in defense, but in the mindset of Troy Wadsworth's defense was, well, this 15-year-old didn't report it immediately or didn't seem affected by it immediately. It's only much longer term now. Are they trying to put a claim on it so then they can benefit and make money out of it? But Troy causing damage towards this younger individual when they don't look that damaged. Is it that bad? Hopefully you understand. I was trying to talk in third person as in Troy Wadsworth, but then it seems a bit awkward when you talk in third person, especially with a situation like that. So I just resorted to just saying what was mentioned in the documents, what we looked at in the past. But does that make sense? So just to revert back, in case it's a bit messy, all of the dysfunctional humans within the Dylan Rounds community, the YouTube streets, okay? All the people you could imagine and think of, they're similar to a rapist in the mentality of they've caused damage, they've caused some kind of disruption somewhere with someone or some people, and then later they play it off like it either never happened and deny it, like how a rapist would deny what they've done to someone, or they would play it down and say, not much harm done, wasn't that bad, was it? Exactly. And it just so happens to all cross on over to a full-on conclusion that with an individual that was mentioned briefly within the Dylan Rounds case, Troy Wadsworth, the Wadsworth brother, ended up engaging in bad activity in the past, and when it came to a court appearance and his attitude at the time, he was playing it down like it wasn't a big deal what he did. It didn't cause that much damage because the person didn't report it immediately and didn't seem too harmed by it, but it's only later that they've now claimed it's caused psychological issues. Are they playing the heartstrings just so they can benefit and gain from it, like a Me Too movement, right? That basically summarizes it all, right? These people that do actions like that, their mentality would be a form of defensiveness from the beginning. It's the easiest thing. People can do bad stuff and then act defensive immediately afterwards. Why is that? Because they want to try and blend in as innocent. They just want to try and subconsciously know what they've done, but they don't want to face the consequences, so they push back. I mean, it can all happen in many different ways. It's like other times where someone could be caught out doing something and then they apologise, they're sorry, they're crying, and as innocent as it may look, it's only done in a manipulative way, maybe, to be treated more leniently. And if not that, the only reason why they are sorry, they're sorry because they've been caught. If they were never caught, they would never be sorry, right? So people that can do bad things or are bad people, how they react to being caught out, being found out, or being revealed. Some can push back in a defensive way, even if they have no right to be like that. It's their defense mechanisms. It's their way of dealing with a situation like that, in hopes of being able to wiggle out of it in some way. And for those that end up reacting in other ways by saying that they're sorry and apologising only because they've been caught, they're doing it to pull the heartstrings and to try and worm their way out of things, right? So in the Dylan Rounds community, with all the people that have come and gone, and some that may latch on in the background, how do they play the situations? Well, a bit of minimalisation, but more so the goldfish mentality. Huh? I don't remember that. I don't remember that happening. I don't remember seeing this. I don't remember seeing anything negative mentioned about you. I don't remember anything about a gun and key fob being taken in this way. I don't remember anything about Chase Venstre. I don't remember anything about Robert Aviles. I don't remember anything about the Dirt Mound. I don't remember anything about a conflict here or a conflict there. I don't remember anything about that. Oh, you don't remember now? Oh, wasn't that convenient? Dipsy-daisy, lackadaisical individuals with a convenient timing of when the goldfish memory loss kicks on in. Whoa, what a coincidence. All this synchronicity kicking on in. How typical. Right? A lot of people have dispersed with time, so why does it matter now? You know why it matters now is because there's now time to talk about it in silence, without disruption. That's why. Without it getting in the way of the ongoing case of Dylan Rounds at a time of when it was critical in trying to find Dylan and get answers out of Brenner. We've reached a checkpoint in a good way. So really, damage can't be done now, but it was then. And that's why we highlight it now, because it's looking back upon a checkpoint and looking back at everything that happened before it. My next prediction and question, because it goes hand in hand. What are the chances of all these humans out there moving on to another case in the future and causing disruption there? The question I ask you, anyone and everyone watching right now, all of the cancer you have witnessed and the people you have come across, the dysfunctional people, right? Do you think that all those will move on to another case and the same thing will happen all over again like how it did with Dylan Rounds? Or do you think there was some kind of selective agenda with let's cause as much disruption in the Dylan Rounds case, but we'll act like innocent angels when we move on to the next case? Because on a small scale, I would argue and say I've seen that, right? In the past, people could come here or just get involved in the case, and a lot of noise and a lot of spasmodic behaviour, spasticity, spasmicness, that's all one can say, all over the place. Spaz 12, a Spaz 12 is a firearm, a Spaz 12 is a shotgun. What does a shotgun do? It's like burst all over. Not good for range, but short CQB combat causes damage all over. So if you've got a load of people close together in proximity in some way, digitally speaking, within a case close to it, and they burst out the scene, you think of the damage and disruption it can do. Similar spasmodity, hence why I use these keywords, which some of the humans out there couldn't quite understand, but they should do now. Okay? So I'd say from my own experience, when people came and went and just in general in the case, right, the way they acted or behaved, as much as they could mess about or intentionally cause disruption and damage and also disrespect Dylan Rounds at the same time, as soon as they ran back to their little homes and their little communities and started covering a completely different case, they expected to be listened to, expected to be respected, expected for the live stream to be focused. Oh, how nice. So basically, I've seen it on a small scale where people have got involved in a case and then indirectly or directly caused disruption. Then they move to a different case on their own channel and expect for everything to be perfect, quiet, and non-disruptive. So that definitely seems picking and choosing. But why was Dylan Rounds, of all people, the target for all this disruption? What is the catalyst behind it? Why did Dylan Rounds' name have to be tarnished? Why did the case have to be disrupted when trying to make sense of the story and trying to move on with it? Right? And I think, indirectly, the tornado effect. Wrong place, wrong time, group of people. It was a recipe of disaster, and it just so happened to be within a case, a true crime case. Because as like people said, you can get drama in other communities, non-true crime. It could be in the food community. It could be in the entertainment comedy community, right? Because between people falling out and communities, different communities coming together. Conflict, tension, gears grinding. It's got nothing to do with the actual topic, but it has everything to do with the humans that are present in that area. So the humans are the problem, right? You could say how at certain times on this planet, you could say a planet or a certain country is bad, or things are in danger, or there's trouble going on. What's it mainly caused by? Humans, right? So just so happens that this time round, or previously, Dylan Rounds' case just so happened to be an actual case, a missing person case at the time, then true crime, and it just happened to entail people coming together. It didn't quite work out, hence all the trouble it caused. But there were still some people and a range. Yeah, we can't play it down. A range, a fair portion of humans that have engaged within the case. You could say hats off to them, but not quite for the right reasons. And these dipsy individuals getting involved too, which probably didn't do much good. But all these humans in general share one thing in common. Goldfish mentality. Oh, I forgot this and I forgot that. That's a shame. It makes you think, will all these people go into another community and case and cause as much trouble as they did in the Dylan Rounds one? What will happen next? It's like with Brookie, right? Because I had a serious point and focus there. Okay, Brookie moved on. Brookie was exposed. Time waster, fake individual, yet was welcomed in by Pancakes, was welcomed in by some other communities out there and audiences, and were deceived by her and enabled her. Well, great. That went well, didn't it? See, it's the thing. If people tried throwing it back on me, Warlike Wrath enabling this and that in the Dylan Rounds case community, I wasn't an enabler because I never started with live streams, live panels, or anything like that to enable people to spread their voices and take over. No one ever took over because I was always in control of my own channel, unlike most other people out there, right? You wonder how things were enabled and how information became so widespread and rumors started was because of these different channels and creators allowing people up on their shows and panels. They talk and shout and then convince the masses. You think of propaganda, a message being played over the speakers by one public speaker. That's the catalyst of it all, the creator, the causation of it. You amplify that volume towards the masses of general public who some could be vulnerable, others dipsy, and others that just go with the sheep and the flow, get convinced by it all and then join on in with the chaos. Well, that's exactly what happened in the Dylan Rounds community. You got a creator here or there, they allow a certain someone on or a local, they talk, and the general public or the audiences over there get convinced by it, and then the more people that believe in it, the more it strengthens that idea and that supposed fact, which is fake. And then it spreads between communities like wildfire. You take all that away, you take the enabling factor away, not as many people would be brainwashed by it. You take away live streams, you take away live panels and call-ins, you take all that away, you're taking away people's voices. And normally you would consider that as censoring, wouldn't you? But in this case, it probably would have been for the better. You take it away, you take away the rumours, you take away the voices, you take away the manipulators, you take away the influencers, right? And this is not a situation where we put all the blame on the creators, the locals, or the people that talk. You can also blame and highlight the audience members that were dumb enough to fall for it, okay? And you could say it's a bit harsh calling people dumb or idiots. It's just simply an observation, that is all. If you want to disagree, that's perfectly okay. But what I also do want to highlight with importance is, yes, you can listen into something and you can question it. There's nothing wrong with that. That's not stupid. But if you put all your eggs into one basket, if you put all your ping pong balls into a lampshade, I don't know why you would do that, but maybe you don't have a bowl for it for storage capacity reasons. But nevertheless, you put everything all into one and you rely on it and believe in it truly, that is a little bit delusional and a bit easy, okay? Okay, I described myself as a whore, but to be honest, when I think back now, there was a lot more easygoing people that had low standards and were easily convinced by stuff without much evidence or facts. This doesn't say much about them, low standard individuals and enablers and messengers. Okay, as I said, I don't always like using the word enable or enabler. There's certain terms and lines I don't like using too much because I don't want to go off like some kind of person seeking justice or trying to highlight the shady individuals investigating a case. I don't go along that pathway as like what some of us have done out there, right? It's unfortunate that some of those humans out there that have done that as part of their little journey online and raising awareness of maybe corrupt humans or investigators, they've ended up having a bit of an entitlement attitude with them, like how when they tried calling me out. So whilst they might claim to be doing good, they do themselves no favours in other directions because of how they act, right? Complete different contrast, but another reality is when you get the truth seekers. I want to cover a case, I want to cover a mystery, I want to put things into perspective, I want to look at different theories, ideas and outcomes, even if it is a bit out of this world, whilst trying to maintain a bit of balance and not going too deep down the rabbit holes. But I don't want to cross on over and be seen as a truth seeker, because when I've seen truth seekers, they end up going a little bit doolally. And they go off the rails and they just lose control, and the credibility, or you know, how you take them seriously, it goes, because their behavior changes. Just like with spirituality and spiritual people, you can always get spiritual people, but then you get the extremes who end up going a bit off the rails, or it becomes a bit unrealistic, right? One extreme to another. Hopefully people understand that. So when I'm covering the Dylan Rounds case, or I'm highlighting the community and what's happened previously, like archiving it all in here and revealing it to you as like some kind of memory lapse of what's happened, a recount of all the details, it's not done in some kind of justice way, right? Not some kind of individual seeking justice or a vigilante, not even a do-gooder. I'm not a good person, I'm not a bad person, I'm a human. I don't even like the word human, I'm a person, right? You see, I do correct myself at times because I really do detest when I say certain words or lines, which many other humans use. I don't like sheepish language. So at times, I will have to correct myself on the spot in case you wonder why I do change my words, because I just don't like sheepish language. I try and avoid it as best as I can, okay? So, just like with the case of Dylan Rounds, what I've done previously, highlight awareness on the case, the situation, but equally with the community and what's previously happened, highlight the awareness and the importance of it and the impacts behind it all and the reality of it to the true extent, and then comparing it to, if you stripped it all back and you took out the early parts, the rest wouldn't happen, there would be no chain reaction, and it would be a lot better off. The Dylan Rounds case and community would have been a lot better off if the majority of people never existed in the first place in the community, okay? Hopefully people don't take that the wrong way, and those watching right now don't take it the wrong way. Hopefully you understand what I'm trying to get at. It is hard to put everything into clarity, like in a form of clarity, because if you think the conflict has gone on for over 2 years, you try explaining all that within one video, it just wouldn't be possible, would it? right? So I'm doing what I can to try and explain it. And then there's always that important factor besides the predictions and what's happened before. Oh, it's the past. Yeah, but what about the future? If people didn't learn then, if people have a goldfish mentality now and the equivalent mindset of a rapist, what will they do next? What damage will they cause next, right? I mean, very short term, you saw it with Brookie moving on to some other case or some other community, talking there about another case. Uh-oh, are they going to cause more damage? Are they going to bullshit their way once again? Possibly. I spread awareness. I highlight the causes, the effects, and the damage it could have afterwards. And guess what happened? It subdued. The human kind of faded away from obscurity and from cases and just resorted to some kind of music videos, and pretty much that's it, the end, okay? So in the end, thankfully, it didn't get any worse. It didn't spread. But what about from the Dylan Rounds case as a whole, all the other humans? Where did they go? What did they do next? What damage will they cause next? Or was it a one and done? Oh, we'll just do Dylan Rounds case. We'll disrespect it. We'll cause trouble there, but claim that we're doing good. And then afterwards, we'll just forget like it never happened and get on with life. How cancerous, okay? Cancer within humans. People are always going about cancer awareness, spread awareness of the disease and the illness. Well, let's highlight and have the equivalent of cancer awareness within people's mindsets, mentalities, right? Let's at least acknowledge that. No harm in doing so. Because I hate the idea of hypocrites. I detest hypocrites. I detest two-faced humans. I've seen enough of it with time. You always get some form of hypocrisy, but when it's repeated, right? Repeated and to a more extreme degree, yeah, that is a bit of a problem. So just awareness so people know what's what and what's going on. Always remember, anyone that questions me when I do these videos or what I say, anyone that questions it, just remember the only reason why we're better off now than before is because of going through this process, okay? There's a reason behind it. If you don't see it now, you will in the future if you stick around long enough. Obviously, with each case or with each community can have its own problems. Of course, that'll be never ending, but how you deal with it, you can get a different outcome to how other people deal with it. And most people, how they dealt with it was poorly, hence why they are where they are or where they've gone. I'm still here, still all under control, okay? Now, that was the introduction. I hope I'm okay for time. If not, I might have some storage issues. Let's just have a brief look at the YouTube comments just to focus back in on the Dylan Rounds case. There's no harm. Here we are, just it to the newest. Scrolling down. Oh, I don't know what that banner was then. We got, how do you say their name? Gayleen or so. Nicole. Welcome. Good morning. We got Maria Gutierrez, a different Maria, saying James Brenner is an evil monster. Dylan Rounds, handsome young man, life was cut short, so short. Heartbreaking, rest in peace Dylan Rounds. My condolence and prayers to the family, for the family. Okay. Welcome to the channel, Maria. Badger Life saying, no, Kurt Wadsworth is not under arrest, and no, he was not involved. Don't listen to Salty the grifter. Just as a heads up, Badger Life, there is a small chance that individual that showed up recently may have not been the original person, because when looking at the profile, there was no videos on the channel and it was created in recent time, I think, so it could be a fake account. Just as a heads up, but as of course with what Badger Life says here and there's no harm in just keeping a form of balance, because if randoms or new people come on in and then see certain comments by other characters, dodgy people out there that might believe in it, and then they're led astray. So always pull people back to reality. We've got Glenn there, of course. Cleo, outstanding content, but just days before Dylan's body located, thank heavens, I was in detached mode like Cleo was, trying to divide life and internet evenly and give much needed space. Honestly, I'm still so very happy over this event with Dylan Rounds being recovered. Shocked as well. Thank you for your content. See what happens next. Beam Dylan located. Wow. Wet. Okay. If you wet Cleo, there is a towel available. Cat Loves saying, I think in time Brenner will come out and say why he did it and what exactly happened. some newspaper or reporter is going to want to know and offer him money. Time will tell. Also, Brenner was squatting in a trailer, so I wonder if Dylan threatened him to get Brenner ousted from the trailer. Personally, I think that Dylan Rounds probably didn't have a problem with Brenner, considering Brenner had worked for Dylan in the past. So if Brenner is nearby, that's good news for Dylan if ever Dylan needed help, right? That's the way I say it. The age Dylan Rounds was, he was more focused about his own farming than anything else, and helping others out with custom farm work. So as long as that wasn't impacted, he probably wouldn't have a problem. And at the Grainshed property, Dylan Rounds didn't own it, so it's not like it was an impact on Dylan if Brenner truly was squatting there. Okay? Let's just say Brenner was squatting at Dylan's place, then maybe Dylan may have had a problem about it. But it depends. You could say Dylan Rounds, to an extent, was a bit easygoing in certain areas. But, yeah. In regards to Brenner talking or opening up, there's more chances now that he would than compared to previously, because he's already done one of the big parts in opening up and revealing the location of where Dylan's buried at. It's kind of like accepting that you're responsible and kind of giving in. Brenner himself, the stubbornness wearing off, maybe, just maybe, he'll open up more next. Jarvis Jordan, boots are on, boots are off. We got Jarvis. Then we got Beatrice. I think Brenner has always been a bitter man and a walking time bomb. I understand that. I'm not sure about what I mean. I used to think the same, but nowadays, right, so Cleo doesn't quite agree. Is Brenner a walking time bomb? Maybe in the scenario of Dylan Rounds, a walking time bomb of hatred or jealousy building up with time, and then all it needed was one more event, one last factor to throw him over the edge, and then he snaps. So I get that. Being bitter, possibly because of age and the power dynamics, I get that. Skeptical, that's a good question. Only James Brenner and Dylan know for sure the time-lapse video sealed his fate. Would Ellie have found the shirt Brenner was wearing without knowing about the time-lapse footage? I think it's once again a little chain effect, right? They only identified the shirt in the video because they found a shirt which they identified from the video. But I think let's be realistic here, okay? That time-lapse footage never existed. It's a key piece of evidence gone. But likely, if the police checked out Brenner's trailer upon taking him in, surely they would have found his shirt by then. Maybe they wouldn't have been able to identify it as quick with using the time-lapse footage to put in perspective. You know how you can say, oh, well, that's the shirt. We found it now. It was in that footage. Here it is now. Just happens to have blood on and DNA from Dylan. I think the police probably still would have found Brenner's shirt because it was dumped in his trailer. As long as the police investigated his trailer at some point, they would have found his shirt. May have taken longer to determine if it was involved or not, such as wearing on the day of Dylan's death, but if they sent it to the labs, which they would have done regardless, they would have come to that conclusion. But being able to see it in motion, Brenner, right, actual footage, hard evidence, that's what's important. The question what you could spin it on, though, is with the time-lapse footage depicting Brenner in the trailer, providing Brenner was informed about that evidence being found on that basis only, if that time-lapse footage never existed, would Brenner have made that plea deal and opened up in revealing the location of Dylan's body now? Or would he have withheld? Let me know. Bungie. The repeated gate being left open by Dylan where his horse got out, the firing of his friend Don also probably didn't help, the remote isolation of Brenner, who basically had nothing but his horse and guns, had to further aggravate his mindset. I think he cared about the horse as he took the time to walk it far away and release it, and he cared about his guns to try and save them by handing them to Don. I'm still curious how Dylan's gun and key fob magically wound up back up in Dylan's trailer, and having pressure washed the truck managed to walk 5 miles back home. Well, supposedly the pressure washer or the truck being washed was in Montello before that. But then again, there was still little wet patches and bumpy bits around the pickup truck. But see, this is the thing. these little niggling questions, right, which may have been made into a big deal in the past. There's more chances now of some of those points being answered if and when Brenner opens up and reveals why or how he buried Dylan Rounds and everything that happened and what was used, in disposing of Dylan and how Dylan was transported. I think it'll make more sense when Brenner does talk, and there might be more chance of that happening now than back then, so that's something at least. Michelle, regardless of the reasons, Brenner is still a monster who should have been removed from society a long time ago, just like the criminal who just murdered a police officer after getting released from jail with zero bail. Dylan was trying to live his best life and had the misfortune of crossing paths with a monster, period, end of story. I think I've noticed this. Isn't it just Americans that use the word period at the end of their sentences? Now, in the past, before I picked up on it, I thought, why are all these Americans saying period? Are they on one? Now, Dave Bell, because he's a crazy idiot. Many are in the world. Right. We've got Johnny there, Johnny Catbird, shout out. Mousetrap, you're welcome. And Skeptical. Watched the video last night and wanted to take some time to consider my response. The focus on Brenner and Dylan's motivations are valid and all points mentioned were spot on. As always, separating them out paints a picture of individual intent, and in some ways Dylan and Brenner were alike, although I'm wary of posting my opinion because it may come off as an attack on Dylan or in defence of Brenner. I assure everyone it is not and never will be. Dylan is the least at fault and certainly did not need to die. In the past, I've made negative comments towards his family and those closest to Dylan. I did not know Dylan, his family, Brenner, or anyone else connected to this case like you will, like Rav. My opinions are based solely on my life experiences with other humans. See, when you look at this like comment, acknowledging the past, acknowledging what one has said in the past, Skeptical does that. You look at all the outsiders out there, they can't even remember the past, right? All these people out there have a goldfish mentality, but here, as example on screen, higher standards as a human. Anyway, now, I spend 40 hours, sometimes more, a week around younger adults, 12 and 13-year-olds. I'm referring to them as young adults here because imagine, like Dylan, they're given the freedom and responsibilities of adults, but still make decisions and choices as those of a child. Just a bit of a highlight, part of the job in the presence, teaching or something like that, if I can remember. Given false sense of security, most young adults have an unjustified assumption of entitlement and or of arrogance. I have to believe Dylan had both of those through no fault of his own. I do not believe he treated all adults in this way as some young adults do. With Dylan's drive to fulfill his dream, the freedom given to pursue his dream, and because he took his adult responsibilities seriously, someone like Brenner was not going to stand in his way. Call it invincibility or naivety. I'm not saying Brenner as an adult deserved Dylan's respect, not at all, no way ever. And Dylan knew that too. In his own words, Brenner was an ass, kind of like how Justin Rounds re-quoted in a past interview. Same goes for the argument with Don Hetley about the washing machine in which Dylan fired him. Bottom line, Brenner took a young man's life because of all the reasons he stated, warlike wrath, jealousy, anger, and lack of a moral compass. My answer to the question why, I believe that the young adult that Dylan was and was raised to be went to put his truck into the shed because that was important to him. Dylan came upon a human that had his own unjustified assumption of entitlement and a predisposition of dislike towards Dylan and his family. Dylan backed into the horse gate, as Rounds stated. Brenner told him. Dylan and Brenner got into an argument about who had the greatest entitlement to the property and or the shed. Snap moment with predisposed unplanned outcome. I don't believe Brenner planned to beat another human with a lawn chair. Snap moment. If I can add on one theory for analysis, the gun Brenner appeared to be cleaning on the time-lapse video has Ellie or the family said if it's Dylan's gun, it was returned to Dylan's trailer cleaned, but surely Ellie or the family would know if it was Dylan's. Perhaps this is a piece of unreleased evidence. I bring this up because Dylan may have had his gun with him during the heated argument. That's all I could think of, right? if Brenner was to use that firearm on Dylan, that firearm of Dylan's would have had to have been on Dylan at the time of the Grangeshed property and near to Brenner. Anyway. And one more, if Brenner knew the location of Dylan's body, does that mean Brenner put him there? I suppose I'm still thinking Brenner had help, and although Brenner presumably shot Dylan, still waiting for autopsy report, did he actually dispose of him? Part of Brenner's charges is desecration. Perhaps part of the plea deal was to take that charge off if Brenner admitted where Dylan is and who put him there. What we don't know is what happened between the time of the time-lapse video and the last timestamp of Dylan's phone at 3:51 p.m. at the pond. We know the phone moved back and forth between the farm and shed property, but why? There's still the mystery of the Jubilee truck. I can't remember the time in which it was seen. It was seen by Walter Michel at the Sun Tunnels, supposedly the Jubilee truck on the 28th of May 2022, leaving the Grangeshed property just after 3 p.m. at a time of when Brenner was already on the way down to the pond area, because as we know 3:51 p.m. is when the final phone ping or timestamp of Dylan's phone was at the pond area nearby. Thanks, Warlike Ref. Whilst the revelation of Dylan's body took place, and I'm sincerely grateful his family has his back, in my mind it's still a mystery and so many unanswered questions the family may know, which is good, but I do hope the truth about Dylan's last moments are made public. So you're welcome, and appreciate the time you spent typing up that comment. I'm sure it would have taken a bit of your time up. So shout out to all the people that have put in time leaving comments and sharing your thoughts and opinions. That's all good to see. I try and respond back to them when I can, and sometimes it's easier to do in these videos. So hopefully this video summarised it all with everything that's happened over the years, and you know, just in general the community aspect should be the final one now, nail in the coffin literally, right, in terms of the community aspect. The real community, such as here, is more cleansed, somewhat higher standards, formal, semi-formal, better attitudes, more so better minds, opinions, mindsets, right? Actual people that watch here that can go elsewhere and do and watch what they like without causing any problems to me. That's good to see. And no pressure either. You know, as I've highlighted, if you want to go elsewhere and watch a video, you do that, no pressure there. As long as humans don't get in my way when I need to defend myself or set a record straight, it's perfectly fine, okay? So I probably do intend to make a video to do a Don Hatley as for location and place of living in terms of, you know, within the case of Dylan Rounds and before. It's been a complete disaster there, as we know, with locations and the true location, but supposedly it's cleared up now. Some people might be shitting themselves, I don't know why, but I'll do a video next time round trying to put into perspective map analysis, before and after photos, and just trying to understand what was the secrecy of it when supposedly it was in public view to begin with. But more about that later. Thanks for watching, appreciate people's patience, and hopefully no one misunderstood this video. I'll see you next time. Goodbye, good night for now.